welcome you to our daily Bible study, and today we're going to conclude our 16th series that is entitled Mental Burnout. Today's lesson is simply the recap. Let's move on. We've talked about mental burnout throughout this entire series, and first of all, we talked about what mental burnout is and how it deals with the extending of the mind to the point where the mind becomes exasperated and tired. Not tired in that it stops to navigate through the feeling mechanisms of the emotions. Neither does it stop calculating or thinking. But primarily what transpires when we talk about mental fatigue, it is generally connected to the use of the mind through the analytical point of view, the use of the emotions in responding to the scenarios and situations of life, and then the use of the will. But we've also discovered that when we speak of burnout is connected to the physiological and the physiological. Of course, the body and its senses and the neural networks. And when we speak of the physiology, we speak of course, the living soul. Burnout then causes an individual to be hyperextended in their humanity. Always remember that the spirit of the believer specifically deals with, number one, the recreated part of the trichotomic nature of man, where God now has superimposed and literally recreated the spirit after the order of the divine kind. Not that man is a God or is God or God in the becoming, but simply means that God then allowed his essence to change the entire nature of the spirit. And that's why Peter says we have received the divine nature by the great and precious promises that we have come to accept through the gospel. And so now the nature of man, the physis of man, has become, specifically in his humanity, it has become the body and the soul. Every system of the body and every incorporated aspect of the living soul or the mind. Remember again, the soul is the very living and natural force of the body that owes its existence to the spirit. It is the spirit then that sustains the very existence of the soul and enables it to consistently connect to the physiology. And so the humanity of man now becomes the physiology and the nephysiology, the body and the soul. And the spirit now has been regenerated and is after the order of the nature of God. Burnout then can only take place in the humanity of man. Jesus said in St. John chapter 3, that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. We have not been totally reborn of the spirit, and that's why we still have physiological bodies and we have a physiological soul or mind. That which is born of the spirit is the spirit, and that's why Jesus says you must be born of the water and of the spirit. And so the spirit then has dramatically taken on the nature of God. And so our humanity is the aspect that can now be burnt out. And remember, as we were dealing with the lesson, burnout then simply means that something has been either ravaged by fire, or in the case where we're talking about burnout syndrome of humanity, then what has occurred is that, again, the person's strength, physiological in every aspect, their mind in every aspect, has been pushed beyond the limits. And most of all, what occurs is that a person goes beyond the human capacity to solve problems or to use the intellect. The human capacity to experience emotions or to respond to those emotions at every level of the consciousness. And then finally, the human aspect or the human potentiality to choose and to consider. If we consistently push our bodies and our minds beyond those constringent or those stringent containments that cause our bodies and our humanity to be finite, then what occurs, exhaustion sets in. This exhaustion can cause the will, the decisive part of man, to become tired and to cease desiring to allow any aspect of the humanity that is left to function. When the will gets tired, then the will ceases to think or to allow the analytical part of the mind to think. When the will gets tired, it ceases to desire to want to express emotions or the emotive states based upon interaction and those experiences that humans go through. And so what transpires then, it is the will that tires. It is the will that self-anesthetizes itself. And it seeks no longer to respond. It seeks no longer to feel, to think, to choose. And so the person then withdraws from those things that are naturally a part of life. In the withdrawal process, a person retreats further and further within themselves to gain the access of avoidance, so they can no longer have to deal with those surroundings. And this can lead to lengthened depression, lengthened harm to the emotive state, and sometimes because people are burnt out, they begin to develop a fractured mentality where they can cope with the burnout. Sometimes in a burnout state, individuals change their personality. They can become moody, they can become withdrawn, they can become crass, and sometimes even abusive physically, because those things and those contingencies that were once a part, that brought balance, that brought some type of civility in the response, are no longer functionable because the will no longer desires or has the strength to consistently experience those stimuli that once occurred in a natural way. And we also said then that some of the things to handle burnout, number one, taking a break, not always just continually going and working until you drop. You have to know your limits, and in so doing, you take a break. To decompress and deconnect. It's not a good practice to bring work home. There must be a balance in your life. We've also said the correct sleeping habits. Before you go to bed, make sure you detach from all of your technology. Turn it off. Start dimming the lights so the body can produce those natural hormones and chemicals to cause the body to relax and to cause the brain to send the signals that we need to rest and start shutting down so we can acquire that rest. Also, we said working out, exercising, whether it's walking, whether it's playing tennis, getting something that will cause you to move your body. It relieves specific types of stress that enables your body to de-stress and to relax, so the blood flow and the chemicals that cause you to feel good can be released and start repairing the body. We also said diet, eating the correct foods, avoiding too much sugar, avoiding too much salt, and getting a well-balanced diet with all the nutrition, all of the vitamins and minerals that are necessary. And then working a hobby, doing something that you enjoy. And so burnout can occur at any stage in your life. It can happen to anyone. So I thank you for joining us. This has been our daily Bible study. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves. God bless you. Remember, push the like button and the subscribe button. I thank you for joining us. Until next time, God bless.